Welcome to the My Tennis Coaching Podcast, your go-to resource for all things tennis coaching. Your host is Steve Whelan. Here, we dive deep into ecological dynamics and constraint-led coaching practices. Whether you're a seasoned coach or just starting out, this podcast is designed to build your confidence, expand your knowledge, and refine your techniques. Join me as we challenge traditional methods, explore player-centered approaches, and transform your coaching experience. Let's take your coaching game to the next level together. Stay tuned for insightful discussions and practical tips that will make a real difference on and off the court.
And welcome to the My Tennis Coaching Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Steve Whelan. I hope you're all well and enjoying your week. Today, we're going to discuss coach deployment. And in a recent post on a Facebook tennis coaches group, a tennis coach asked the question, can I deploy a level 1 to run groups, and how much should I pay them? And in the comments section, there was lots of different answers, ranging from rates of pay to safeguarding to insurance. And I'm not going to go down the route here of whether or not level 1s should be able to run sessions from a insurance point of view or a safeguarding point of view. But I'm going to talk about it just from a purely player's experience. And I made a comment in the group based on this as well. It's not my place to say whether or not they can or can't be deployed from an insurance point of view. But the way I look at it is very simple. I want to give my players the best possible experience. And if I can deploy a coach who I trust, who I believe will deliver a session of quality and will have a positive impact on the players, I would be quite comfortable in deploying them. 100%. Irrelevant of qualifications. However, there seems to be this commercialization of tennis coaches. They will just deploy a coach with a group just to ensure it helps them. And it may be a case of they're going on holiday or their summer camps have been oversubscribed and they've got to get additional hands in and people to help out. So they'll just put anyone in, irrespective of qualifications, insurance, safeguard, and all that jazz. And my issue with it is it really harms the coaching industry. The biggest concern with a inexperienced coach, if they're lowly qualified, is they won't have an awful lot of experience. They won't have an awful lot of confidence, and they definitely won't have the skills that I believe will give a very positive experience. Now, they may be teachers, they may work in other sports, they may be qualified coaches in other sports, and that's a little bit different. And that's why I said I don't just look at qualifications. But more often than not, I'm seeing when I go around tennis clubs, really bad tennis lessons. Static, isolated, basket feeding, explicit shouting instructions. Coaches look, they don't know what to do. So they resort back to type. The communication is generally pretty poor. The experience is pretty poor. And what happens is the players will come for a couple of times, but then they'll get bored. They'll either not make the progress. They'll get fed up doing the same thing over and over again. They'll lose interest in the game. Therefore, they'll leave tennis and they'll go and find another sport. And that's on the coach. And sometimes it's not the coach that's been deployed, it's the head coach. The head coach is just pushed off the red group or the blue group. Again, I mentioned this in a podcast a few weeks ago. They push off the beginners because they believe it's easier for the inexperienced coach to deal with. And that just harms tennis. And it frightens me when I look at these groups of these tennis coaches, and many of the people who are making comments are running businesses and they're deploying coaches. But it's all for their own financial or their personal gain. It's not what's best for tennis. And whether or not you agree with coach qualifications or the national governing body and the way they structure their coach qualifications, it's irrelevant. We've got to make sure that coaches, when they're put in front of people and players, that they have the right level of knowledge, the right skill set, and they're confident in delivering that. Because if they're not, it harms everybody. And we wonder why our profession is not seen as professional. Most people, even my good friends and my family, don't think I've got a real job. And we wonder why, when it's seen as this just a volunteer basis. And lots of other sports will have volunteers who run practices and run teams. But in tennis, generally speaking, the tennis coaches are paid. It's a professional job. But we're not acting professional. We're given a 2-bit service. And that's on head coaches because they're just looking at commercial gain, or they don't want to do the Reds. They don't want to do the Friday night session. They don't want to do a Sunday morning because they work Saturday. So they'll just deploy a young, inexperienced coach generally to do the hours they don't want to do. And the impact is massive because it hurts us all. And I really think it goes back to a podcast a few weeks ago. We need better mentoring systems in place. And it's great if these young coaches have a good mentor. However, in my experience, if the head coach can't be bothered doing these sessions, they're not going to spend a lot of time mentoring. I heard quite recently of a club that's not too far away from me has recently cut ties with a coaching company. Why? Because all the coaching company did was send them inexperienced, lowly qualified coaches. So they signed the agreement as experienced coaches, but then they just deployed younger coaches, and the experience was horrendous for members. But also the experience on those younger coaches is horrendous because they're put in situations where, again, they haven't got the confidence, the knowledge, or the skills. So therefore, they're not going to see tennis as a very viable job if they're not enjoying it themselves, because they've been put in a position where they haven't just got the skill set. But the commercial company, and it's quite a popular company in this area, they're just deploying people and putting them in and making money, while the head coaches are sat at home and on Instagram promoting how great they are and what a great company it is. But they're just deploying inexperienced coaches. And you see it more and more now, especially within commercial tennis. So a big commercial provider, all they're hiring now is level 2s and below. Because of the payment model they've got in place, they can't attract experienced coaches. So the impact then is the players have a very ineffective and not a great experience. And that's what they believe tennis is and what believe tennis coaching is. And it ties into the whole pickleball paddle fiasco. You go to a tennis lesson and it's a horrendous experience. You're either bored out your mind because you're standing around. The coach has made it overly complicated by just giving lots of technical information. Therefore, you're just confused and you don't believe you can play. So therefore, you're going to pick up a paddle or a pickleball bat because you can just go and play that game, apparently. Tennis coaches are really hurting the industry through things like this, and you see the ego on these groups where they're blaming the national governing body, they're blaming the coach qualifications, they're blaming everyone, rather than looking at themselves and going, should I really be deploying this 17-year-old level 1 with this group of players? Is that the best thing for my players, or is the best thing for me? That goes back into the whole coach-centered approach. It's what's best for the coach, not what's best for the players. And it hurts us all. Because again, people will go to these sessions and that's what they think coaching is. Coaching standing around as this 70-year-old kid feeds you a ball and gives you lots of explicit instructions because that's what they've been told to do by the head coach. It's boring. It's repetitive. It's dull. It sounds very complicated. I'll just go and play pickleball. Pickleball looks really easy. I can just play it out without anyone telling me what to do. So not only, again, in this podcast, we've talked about coach education, coach methods, mentoring. I think we're in a bad shape. I generally think tennis is in trouble. And I think the bubble's bursting in terms of the coach. And we need to radically change, one, how we train coaches, how we deliver tennis coaching. We need to modernize it, and we need to modernize it quick. If we don't modernize it, we're going to get left behind. And people, as we see now, are now going to other sports that have this ability to pick up and play. And I had this argument the other day with with a pickleball player. You can just pick up and play tennis. And yeah, pickleball, the perception is it's easier, smaller court, slower ball, smaller rackets. There's a thing called mini tennis that we've had here for like over 20 odd years. We could just make the ball slower. We can make the court smaller. We can make the racket smaller. We've been doing that for 20 years with the juniors. Why can't we do it with the adults? We may have to market it a little bit differently and change the ball colours, and we're going to have to sell it to the adults a little bit more. But all pickleball is mini red tennis and doubles. But we need to change the mindset. And I know on this podcast, I always go back to the coaches because I'm a coach myself. But the coaches are the custodians of the sport at the moment, because I've said before, vast majority of people, their experience of tennis now is coaching. It's not playing tennis. It's being coached in tennis. And that's why coaches have such a huge, important role, and why we're getting it so wrong. And the impact we're starting to see is massive. We're losing tennis courts. We're losing tennis players. And coaches are blaming everyone apart from looking at themselves. And stuff like that Facebook group post just highlights how badly we're getting it wrong. We're deploying inexperienced coaches to run groups just for commercial gain or personal gain. Spotify now have a new feature where you can leave some comments. So please leave comments down below. Let me know what you think. Should we be deploying inexperienced coaches? And I get the whole idea of, well, they don't get experience about actually doing it. But that's where mentoring comes in. So please check out the mentoring episodes a few episodes back. As always, check out mytenniscoaching.com. If you're interested in a player-centered approach to coaching and would like to learn more, check out my Tennis Coach Academy. And please feel free to drop me a message over on Instagram at mytenniscoaching, or email me, steve@mytenniscoaching.com. Until next time, I'll see you soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the My Tennis Coaching Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an update. Your support helps us bring more insightful discussions and valuable tips to enhancing your coaching journey. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at MyTennisCoaching for daily inspiration, coaching advice, and behind-the-scenes content. Stay connected, stay inspired, and keep pushing the boundaries of your coaching skills. Until next time, keep fostering growth, innovation, and excellence on and off the court. See you in the next episode.